Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about a brighter, better Dungeons and Dragons. So, first we're going to talk about something a little personal, just something that prompted this video for me, just an occurrence in my life that I was really kind of special, and I'm just taking some lessons away from it, and I want to, and of course it really made me think about where we are with Dungeons and Dragons and where we're heading. All right, so my daughter just graduated high school. My youngest daughter, I have two daughters, and my youngest daughter just graduated high school. Now it's pretty amazing. She's headed off to college in the fall, which I'm really excited about. Shockingly, she's going to study computer science, exactly like me, which is actually my degree wasn't it, but she's kind of fallen in my footsteps on a career, which again I'm just like. I didn't ask for, it's shocking to me. It's really shocking. So, but at this school she's at, incredible school, she was there for 13 years. She went in at kindergarten, and she went, elementary school, junior high, high school, all the way up through. She had a friend there who did the same, was there with her for all 13 years. Absolutely incredible. Like, certainly very different than the way I came up. I was in 6 different schools before I graduated, right? And so something happened that really just shocked me and made me really delighted and then sad all at the same time. So so my wife sends me this link on Facebook, and she's like, check out that link, so I check it out, and it's a link from my daughter's school, right? And they're doing a senior procession. And I was like, what is this, right? And so basically what they did, I've never seen this before. You know what? I saw this once before in a movie. The movie Taps has something similar to this, but not completely the same. But Taps had a scene very much like what actually happened at my daughter's school. So they did this senior procession. So I saw my daughter graduate, like this last weekend. They had a fantastic, wonderful, graduation ceremony. It was really beautiful. But this senior procession was in school. So on my daughter's, I think it was her second to last day in school, they did this thing where all the teachers got together and they took the entire senior class and they took them through a parade. They paraded them through the entire school. The school has like 2 floors. And they walked all the seniors through the entire school, and all the students of every other grade lined the halls and were just clapping and cheering for the graduating seniors, saying, you are awesome. You have achieved something incredible, and we are celebrating you with and there were kids, everybody was clapping. There were, underclassmen and underclass students, from lower classes, not seniors, were like hugging them, and there was like almost like Fortnite emotes, kids just kind of dancing on the side. It was incredible. I'd never seen anything like it. It was a celebration of every graduating senior, right? And at first I was like, wow, this is incredible. I can't believe my daughter got to do this. My daughter's friend, who had been with her for all 13 years, another female student, she was bawling in the, and then all of this was, came from 100 different cell phones, and they even let the kids take out cell phones and like capture it, right? And I was just so astounded, right? So my daughter's friend was just bawling, like crying, because she was being celebrated. And I'll tell you right now, I don't think a lot of kids are celebrated often, right? Like, when are kids celebrated other than sports, right? Like, the stupidest thing our kids do, we celebrate for them and give them trophies. It's the most useless, activity they could possibly be involved with. It will not help them as they go forward in almost any way, and we do more celebration for it than anything they do, right? There's no, like, we don't hand out, like, it's so ridiculous, right? But here was a major celebration of academic persistence, They weren't celebrating the kids who got the great, they weren't my daughter's National Honor Society. They weren't celebrating National Honors. They were celebrating every kid who persevered and graduated. And it was just astounding. I couldn't believe it, right? Like, and I was just so glad for my daughter that she got to be celebrated in this way. And I also really excited that, like, there's things that happen in my kids' lives all the time that, like, I'm not connected to that just are incredibly beneficial to them, right? Which is great. Like, I do my part. I make sure that they have the Maslow's hierarchy is covered, right? They have food, shelter, and clothing, and also, of course, I love them and do my best to encourage them. But in many ways, like, I just make sure that they're safe and provisioned, right? And like, and I try increasingly, especially at this, at these older ages, try to tell them nothing, right? Because I realize my words mean nothing. What really matters is what I'm doing, right? They're going to do what I do, or go, oh my gosh, look at what he did and look at the consequence. I'm never going to do that. I realize the words mean nothing. All that means anything now is example, right? And so I was just astounded and blown away by this. But then I remembered, I was like, and then I was thinking, what was my senior procession like? And I remembered, it didn't exist, right? Like, there was no moment like this for me, right? Like, and I was like, why? Like, why didn't I get this, right? And I realized, first of all, every teacher in my kid's school is incredibly excited to be there and is engaging with, this year, the art teacher, for my daughter, like, went above and beyond, far more than was ever called for being a teacher, and just like drew my daughter out and made her art better and pushed her into trying mediums she had never tried before, and literally worked with her on pieces, and had long art discussions about oil paint versus acrylics, and just like, and all my kids that have gone through this school, they all have these incredible experiences with these teachers who really invest with them. And I realized, at my school, there were those teachers, okay, but they weren't every teacher, right? Like, or the vast majority of teachers there. Like the school that my daughter's at, right? You could tell, like, the teachers are all in. It's incredible. I'm so blessed to have my kids at the school, and I think back on my kids and my education, and 1 out of 10 teachers gave 2 rats for anybody there, right? And the reason you could have never done this at my school is it took every teacher to take the kids into the hall, to get kids ready, to make sure that the celebration didn't get too boisterous, right? And if they had asked the teachers at my school, they'd be like, we ain't celebrating nothing, right? This happens every year. Who cares, right? And so it didn't happen because the teachers didn't care enough, right? The other thing that would have happened, and the reason why my teachers didn't want to do this, right, is the other thing that they did that would have happened at my school is the cliques. The cliques were 6 deep, man. Nerds, jocks, populars, weirdos. The whole breakfast club was quite real at my school, right? And that is not the case at my kids' school. Those cliques have generally died, right? The kids today are far more kind and tolerant to each other. They don't care, like, my kids have never been mocked because they didn't have the right sneakers, right? Like, I was mocked mercilessly for clothes, for generally just not being rich. We weren't even poor, right? Like, it's just my parents didn't spend $300 an outfit, and so I would get mocked, right? Like, why are you wearing kids? Like, my kids don't have any concept of that, right? And it was so astounding telling me what she went through. And I realized, the cliques would have been too deep for this to happen. And all that would have happened is if you did the same thing and you had recorded it, you would have seen half the kids just leaning against the wall. So I'm not celebrating that dude. He's not a jock. That dude over there shoved me into a locker. None of that happened. Like, it has, things have dramatically changed. And my daughter's, K through 12 is bright and better than mine. So much better than mine. So much less pain and frustration and mockery, and like, her world is fundamentally different, right? Let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons, right? This is what excites me, right? I realized uh, my daughter's education happened in 5th edition, right? It happened between 4th and 5th edition, right? Maybe a little bit 3rd. Mine happened all of my education, all my K through 12 was all in D&D 1E, right? And here's the thing. D&D 1E, I got a high school degree. It got me out there and it got me into college. The same as my daughter. But my daughter's experience has been so much brighter and better. It's just volumes better than the world I was in, right? Like, there was no celebration of any, there was no celebration of the academic achievements that I had, or academic perseverance. There was no celebration of academic perseverance for me, all right? And here's where we're at with D&D 1E and D&D through the editions, right? Dungeons & Dragons 1E, it functions. It is a functioning Dungeons & Dragons campaign generator. It will give you Dungeons & Dragons activity, right? It did. It gave us what we needed from Dungeons & Dragons. My school, my high school, and my junior high, and my elementary school, and my kindergarten, they all gave me what I needed to graduate and proceed forward, right? But there was nothing extra. And it was black and white, and it was dark, and frankly, it was painful. And I think that's exactly what D&D 1 is. D&D 1E is. The people who went through it, they had the worst Dungeons & Dragons experience. It was literally dark. The pages were black and white, right? D&D 5E today, bright and better, right? D&D 1E, right? The clicks were there, right? It's hard. It is hard, right, to not realize that there was just too much attention on white males in D&D 1E and 2E, right? And that they really weren't thinking at the levels they should have for D&D 2E, 3E, and for D&D, the way we see in D&D 3E, 4E, and 5E, right? Gary made sure that progressiveness was in 1E, but it was so much farther behind from where we are today. He was like, hey, let's make sure that all genders and races are here. But there was nothing for LGBTQ in D&D 1E and 2E, in my humble opinion. If I'm wrong there, correct me, right? He was progressive, but he left groups out. Just like in my high school, the cliques were so strong that one clique wouldn't celebrate another. You couldn't do a parade through the halls, and every student was clapping and joyous and celebrating the academic perseverance. The other thing that really blows my mind is the kids who saw that senior procession, right? It shouldn't be this way, right? It shouldn't be this way. Kids should, I don't know if you know this, but kids are dropping out of school like crazy now. Like crazy. And not just in high school anymore. There are kids from the March 2020 problem, we had low millions of kids dropping out in elementary and junior high. They were like, we are missing millions of students, right? Like, it's horrific what's happening in some of the schools today, right? And and the reality is, every kid in my daughter's school that sees this, they're like, they should be like, oh, I should go get a college, a high school degree so I can get a job. Kids don't think like that. They're like, oh, I want my parade. I'm going to stay to get my parade, right? And today, right, if you went into Dungeons & Dragons in 1E, right, what was going to keep you, right? You had to remain dedicated. And the game was like, hey, if you're not super good at this, you suck. Bye. We don't care. Today, D&D 5E, brighter, better, more kind, more tolerant, better in every single way. Does not just deliver good play, but goes beyond and really interacts with players and dungeon masters and gives them very real reasons to improve themselves, right? And become more tolerant, become more kind, do better at math, better at literature, better at all these incredible things. Also, better at understanding culture and geography and other cultures' history. We're about to get the Radiant Journeys through the Radiant Citadel. You will learn more about world culture from that book than anything ever produced in 1E or 2E, right? Today's Dungeons & Dragons 5E is... D&D 1E was a dark, harsh place, right? it functioned as a D&D campaign generator. But what is happening today, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, because it retains every aspect and lifts up every aspect of Gary Gygax's legacy of progressiveness and brilliance and love and passion and art and literature, everything he cared about is right there, right? Better, brighter, more brilliant, just so much better. And I'm just astounded, that we've arrived here. And the next edition is going to take it even further. And the Dungeon Masters and the Dungeon players are going to have such a more rich, vibrant experience than we ever did in the black and white days of D&D 1E and 2E, right? And I'm excited for the new Dungeon Masters and the new Dungeon Dragons players who are going to have this richer experience. My daughter had a richer K through 12 than I did, right? Just so much richer. And the new Dungeon Masters and the new Dungeons and Dragons players they're going to be rocketing to such a much better place. And I'm so glad for them. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your K through 12 experience? I'd love to hear it. Was it rich and robust like my daughter's, or was it kind of shriveled and desiccated like mine? And what are your thoughts about this new group of Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Masters and Dungeon Dragons players having this much brighter and more brilliant experience? Are you a little jealous, or are you just happy for them? Because I gotta say, there's a little bit of when I saw this procession, I was like, I never saw anything like that, and I was a little jelly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.